I love this story. The story of the Pharisee and the publican. It's always been one of my favorite just dynamics that Jesus brings together. First of all, there's a Pharisee. A Pharisee is one of the people that's constantly going up against Jesus. A Pharisee is part of a religious sect in Judaism in the olden times. And a Pharisee literally comes from the Hebrew word parash, which means parish, Pharisee, which means a separatist, a purist. Literally, their name means one who is separated from sin. So, we're already presumptuous just in the name itself. Then there's the publican. The publican is a tax collector. Tax collector gathers money from the public, but there's a little twist because most tax collectors were Jews themselves, fellow Jews, along with those who were oppressed by Rome, and they would collect taxes and tax their brothers and sisters and give to the oppressive Roman Empire. So, not only were they looked down upon for being Jews by the Romans, but they were also cast away as sinners and traitors for stealing money from their brothers and sisters, because tax collectors, like lawyers, didn't have a good name back then. They were known for taking off a little bit of the top. So the scene is set with these two guys. When Jesus says a Pharisee and the other was a tax collector, everyone's minds snap right exactly to what kind of dynamic these two people have. The Pharisee goes up to the front of the church, stands up really loud with his arms out. "Oh God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I pay tithes. Thank you for making me like me and not like that sinner over there." What a scumbag. I've always hated this character. And then we have the example of the publican, the tax collector, the one who's, seemingly dishonest, the one who doesn't have a very glorious job, the one who's really not doing any good for his community. And he doesn't even raise his eyes to heaven. He stands off in the back and says, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." This prayer is complete humility, and it's complete acknowledgement of the truth. "Oh God, you, the creator and sustainer and starter of all things, have mercy. I need your mercy because I'm a sinner." So as I would pray this prayer in seminary and I would look and study this passage, I started to sit in the back and say, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner, but also thank you so much for not making me like that pompous, arrogant, scumbag Pharisee who sits in the front. Thank you that I'm not like the rest of those guys who think they're so holy and think they're so great. Thank you for letting me be so humble enough to sit in the back." And I realized, crap, I'm switching. All I'm doing is switching. And then I would, find myself back in holiness again, and then I would go in the front and say, "Thank you that I'm praying all the time, that I'm, holier than those other guys who sit in the back and come late. How dare I? I was late the day before to Mass." So it's a constant wheel, just spinning and spinning. One day I'd be the Pharisee, one day I'd be the publican, I'd be switching roles and switching titles, and then it's very confusing and very exhausting. So finally, I just sat in the middle of the church and just thought, "Lord, I'm just going to sit here and do my best. I'm not very awake today, but I'm going to do my best and pray and join in with the other seminarians." That's it. Humility is the middle ground. Humility is acknowledging the truth about yourself. Humility is acknowledging the truth about yourself. It's not too much pride, but it's also not too much false humility, not too little. Humility, as you know, comes from humus, comes from human, comes from ground up, something from the ground, which is acknowledging that we come from the ground. God made us from the clay, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. So if you are a good basketball player, admit it, and do good on the court. If you are really good at gardening, admit it and keep giving me vegetables. Would you think that St. Paul in the reading we had earlier is cocky or is arrogant for saying, I have done well. I have finished the race and I have run my part. Now here I'm going to get a crown. That's not arrogant. That's truthful. He's acknowledging the truth about himself, that he has worked pretty darn hard throughout his life, and now he's going forward to his heavenly reward. So, the lesson here is to acknowledge the truth about yourself. Not to exalt yourself, but also not to downplay yourself. Because humbling is not saying, oh, I'm worthless, I'm dumb, don't pay attention to me, I don't want to be a burden. No, humility is acknowledging the truth about yourself. And we can start with some of that truth with Father Bob, well now Bishop Bob Barron was our rector for 1 year at Mundelein. He's a famous priest, speaker, and bishop. And the three guidelines he gave us to start off our seminary journey were, you are a sinner. Jesus is the center. Life is not about you. I'll let that last one slide for any 2 or 3 year olds in the congregation yet. You are a sinner. Jesus is your center. And life is not about you. I thought, well, that's kind of harsh. I don't want to hear that stuff. Come on, Bob, what are you doing? But then I realized, what a freeing experience. I don't have to be perfect, morally or any other way, because I'm a sinner. I always do things that miss the mark. That's what sin means. It comes from a Hebrew word for missing the mark. If you think of a bow and arrow or darts, you're hitting the outside ring. You're not getting the center. That's the Hebrew idea of sin, is missing the mark. And the mark is the middle. That's God's will. I'm always going to miss it because I'm human. Jesus is my center. Jesus should be the center of my world, my heart, my goals, my aspirations, everything. And then finally, life's not about me. Well, I don't want to hear that. I'm a priest. I'm important. I want to hear this. No. What a relief, though. What a relief to know that you as a parent, you as a mother or father, life's not about you. It's about your kids, about your community. It's about helping them, getting them to heaven. I think that's a lot of pressure taken off us, when we realize that it's all about Him as the center. We do it imperfectly. He, Jesus, does it perfectly. So why not just let Him take care of it? It's actually very freeing. So those 3 truths about yourself, because remember, humility is acknowledging the truth about yourself. You're a sinner. I'm a sinner. Jesus isn't the center. My center. Your center. And life is not about us. Life's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about others. Whoever others are. The people not in this church. The people who we need to go find and be with. When we When we humbly acknowledge these truths about ourselves, I think it just makes us even more free. One of the ways sacramentally we can do this is, well, obviously through the Eucharist, which we're about to do. We're about to receive all of truth itself in the form of bread and wine into our bodies and into our souls. Another way is the sacrament of reconciliation, of confession. It's an uncomfortable thing to sit there, to go to the dentist and say, yeah, I have a cavity right here. Open up your mouth. But that's all confession is opening up yourself, opening up your heart and say, look, I got a cavity and I got a pain right here and I need God to heal it and take care of it. That's all it is. And I don't even use drills or anything. So I make it pretty easy. After Mass today, I'm going to be go straight to the box back there, and I'll be there until the line runs out. So it's a really freeing and therapeutic experience to acknowledge that I'm not perfect, and I don't have to be. So as we go into this week of the 30th week of Ordinary Time, we look out for the Pharisees and the publicans in our life and know that pride, false pride, evil, lies can come in and creep in. But the more we acknowledge and immerse ourselves into this community, into the Eucharist, and into the sacrament of confession, then we can continue to acknowledge the truth about ourselves, which is, above all, we are beloved children of the Father. O God, be merciful to me, a sinner.